we're asked to find the diameter and the rotational directions of gears B, C, and D given the diameter and rotational direction of gear A. So let's go ahead and start with the easier one. We're going to start with knowing that gear A is clockwise. Let's find the rotational directions of the other three. So if gear A is going clockwise, what does that mean? Well, if you look, that means it's pushing down on this point in gear B, which if it's going downward, it would come out going down and to the right. Okay, well, that is clearly counterclockwise. So we can say gear B is counterclockwise. And of course, that means it would be pushing gear C up at this point. If it's going up, then it would go up and to the right. And if you look, that is clearly clockwise. So we can say gear C is, not equals, let's keep it consistent, is, let's just start that whole arrow over. But gear C is clearly clockwise. And if you look, well, the connecting gears are obviously going in alternate directions. So it's clockwise, then counterclockwise, clockwise, and then, of course, then gear D following suit would, of course, be counterclockwise. And so that was the easy part. Let's go ahead and dive into the harder part. And it's really not that hard, but assuming that diameter of gear A is 5 inches, what is the diameter of the other three gears? So let's go ahead and start by finding the diameter of gear B. And so to find this, I'm going to use the gear ratio of what I know, which is the gear ratio of A to B. Okay, so we'll use blue for A, of course, and then green for B. Just to soothe our OCD, we can keep it nice and consistent. But to figure this out, what I'm going to say is I know that gear ratio is equal to the number out over the number in, but it's also equal to the diameter output over the diameter input. So we can actually say that these are all equal. And so what I'm going to do is literally take this in and plug this in right here. I'm saying the gear ratio is equal to both of these proportions. And of course that these two proportions are equal to each other, which is probably a more important fact. So then I'm going to set those equal to, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite these proportions, filling in my numbers. So what's my number of teeth output? Well, the output is clearly gear B in this ratio, so that would be 12 teeth. And the number of teeth input is, of course, 20 teeth, or gear A's number of teeth. And I'm going to set that equal to the diameter output divided by the diameter input. So what's our output diameter? Well, that would be the diameter of our output, which is gear B. But we don't know that. That's kind of the whole point of this. But we do know our diameter input, which is gear A, which would, of course, just be 5 inches. And so to solve this, what I'm actually going to do is just cross multiply. I'm going to say 12 times 5 divided by 20 teeth. So let's go ahead and just rewrite this equation. We can say that 12 teeth, and we're going to multiply that by 5 inches. And then we're going to divide that by 20 teeth. And we can go ahead and say that this whole thing is equal to, of course, the diameter of gear B. And so to figure out what that is, we can pull out our handy-dandy calculator. We can say, what is 12 times 5? And then we can divide whatever that is, which is 60, by 20. And we get a total diameter for gear B of 3 inches. So that was pretty easy. And the other gears will actually be just as easy. So we can go ahead and solve for the diameter of gear C using our gear ratio of, well, gear B connected to gear C. And since we know the number of teeth for both and we know the diameter of one, we can actually use the exact same equation as before. The number proportion is equal to the diameter proportion. So we can just go ahead and plug those in. So I can set the number output divided by the number input is equal to the diameter output divided by the diameter input, just like before. So what is our output? Well, our output is clearly gear C. And we know the number of teeth is 5. And of course, we know our number input as well. That would be gear B in this system, which is 12 teeth. We do not, however, know our diameter output or our diameter of gear C. So, and that's kind of the whole point of this. So we can just leave that as a variable. And on bottom, we will put our diameter, which we just found of gear B, which is 3 inches. And so to figure this out, we would, of course, just cross multiply and divide again. So we can pull out our handy-dandy calculator. We could say, what is 5 times 3? And then we can divide whatever that is by 12. So 15 divided by 12 is a total diameter so diameter of gear C is 1.25 inches. And so that was really easy. And so we'll find out that the diameter of gear D is just as simple. But this time I actually want to throw a little curveball at you. I want to make a point here. I want to say that we could use gear ratio C to D to figure it, but we could use any one of these gear ratios to figure it out, because whatever that gear ratio is will be equal to the different version of that same gear ratio. So let's say the gear ratio of A to D, to go ahead and solve for the diameter of gear D. So let's set this equal to, again, the number output divided by the number input is equal to the diameter output divided by the diameter input. And of course, we know what the output teeth is. It's 20 teeth. And we know what the input teeth is. Let me go ahead and make sure I pick my right color, is 20 teeth. Now, we do not know the diameter of our output. That's kind of the whole point here, but we do know the diameter of our input. And of course, looking at this, it could be really obvious. If 20 over 20 is equal to something over 5, then we know that the diameter D has to be equal to 5 inches so that they can be equal. 5 over 5 is 1, 20 over 20 is 1. Or, of course, we could just cross multiply and divide. We could say 20 times 5 is 100, divided by 20 is, of course, 5 inches. And of course, if we would have said gear ratio B to D or gear ratio C to D, we would have got the same answer. And I encourage you to challenge yourself and try that if you do not believe me.